From the JAMA Network, this is the JAMA Medical News Podcast, discussing timely topics in clinical medicine, biomedical sciences, public health, and health policy, featured in the medical news section of JAMA.
On today's show, we're discussing the promise of mRNA vaccines to treat cancer. I'm Jennifer Abbasi, director of JAMA Medical News. Lead senior staff writer Rita Rubin is here to talk about her story. Hi, Rita.
Hi, Jen.
Many people may not realize this, but scientists began working on messenger RNA vaccines years before anyone had ever heard of COVID-19.
That's right. Back in the 1990s, the original goal was to use mRNA to treat cancer. Now that the pandemic is behind us and the uptake of COVID-19 vaccines has diminished, the companies that manufacture mRNA vaccines are once again focusing on cancer, along with the scientists at academic medical centers who never stopped. Now, unlike vaccines for infectious diseases, mRNA cancer vaccines are designed to treat malignancies, not prevent them. But with both types of vaccines, mRNA serves as an instructor for the immune system.
So how far along is the field of mRNA vaccines for cancer treatment?
Well, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration hasn't yet approved an mRNA vaccine to treat cancer. But small early-phase clinical trials in multiple types of malignancies, including melanoma, pancreatic cancer, and glioblastoma, look promising. Moderna, for example, is testing an investigational treatment in 10 clinical trials. One of those is a phase 3 trial for melanoma, in which the vaccine is combined with Merck's pembrolizumab, which is sold as Keytruda.
And how do mRNA vaccines work?
Well, with COVID-19 vaccines, mRNA trains cells to make the spike protein found on SARS-CoV-2, priming the immune system to generate antibodies and other disease-fighting cells when it encounters the virus. Now, with cancer vaccines, mRNA trains cells to make proteins designed to stimulate an immune response. In this case, the proteins are neoantigens, which are found only on tumor cells, not healthy cells. No two tumors have the same neoantigens, so the mRNA cancer vaccines must be personalized. Typically, once a tumor is resected, a piece of it is sent off for next-generation sequencing to determine what neoantigens the patient's vaccine should target. The patient then receives a series of injections or infusions of their individualized vaccine, sometimes with another immunotherapy treatment. Some small studies have found that vaccine-induced T cells last for years and are associated with prolonged disease-free survival. Certain types of tumors, especially melanomas, have more neoantigens than others, making them more amenable to immunotherapy such as mRNA vaccines. But other tumors, such as pancreatic ductal adenocarcinomas and glioblastomas, have relatively few neoantigens, making them more challenging targets.
Now, Rita, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services last year announced that it was terminating nearly $500 million for mRNA vaccine development. Will that stall the progress on mRNA cancer vaccines?
The scientists I interviewed who are in academia all emphasize that research into cancer vaccines can't solely be left up to pharmaceutical companies. Of course, the other main funder of such research would be the federal government. HHS noted in a press release that the winding down of mRNA vaccine research would not affect research into other uses of the technology, but whether that included cancer vaccines wasn't clear. However, in March, at the most recent meeting of the National Cancer Advisory Board, National Cancer Institute Director Anthony Latai reported that the nonprofit Foundation for the National Institutes of Health was taking the lead in public-private partnerships to develop cancer vaccines. Latai told the advisory board members that he expects significant support from outside the government for cancer vaccine trials. So we shall see.
As a result of misinformation, vaccine hesitancy, especially for mRNA vaccines, has grown. How might that affect patients' attitudes toward cancer vaccines?
I have to say, I found it hard to imagine that someone with a potentially lethal cancer would refuse a promising treatment just because it's an mRNA vaccine. But as health communications researcher Danielle Boatman reminded me, there's a long history of patients rejecting conventional therapy in favor of unproven alternative medicine. Boatman emphasized the importance of researchers and clinicians being able to explain to the public and to patients how mRNA vaccines work. It's perhaps worth noting that Moderna intentionally does not refer to its treatment as a vaccine, although it acts like one. Now, company scientists told me that that decision was made to minimize confusion on the public's part with vaccines that prevent diseases.
Okay, thanks, Rita. If you'd like to learn more, we'll include a link to Rita's story in the show description. This week, we also have an interview with the chair of the American College of Cardiology's annual scientific sessions. I spoke with her about clinical research highlights from the recent conference. You can find that episode in this show's feed and all of our stories at JAMAmedicalnews.com. Thanks to Rita Rubin for joining me. I'm Jennifer Abbasi. This episode was produced by Daniel Musisi at the JAMA Network. To follow this and other JAMA Network podcasts, please visit us online at JAMAnetworkaudio.com. Thanks for listening, and join us again next week.
This content is protected by copyright by the American Medical Association with all rights reserved, including those for text and data mining, AI training, and similar technologies.